Completed my sleep in last 2 days. So yeah,
Good. Take care.
yeah, yeah. Thank
Off
you.
we go into another one. Describe the main challenges in recognizing and measuring intangible assets such as brands in the statement of financial position. Discuss the following accounting issues relating to Corbel Company's financial statements for the year ended 31st of December 2007 in accordance with IFRS. Whether the Jengi company brand name will be accounted for separately from goodwill on acquisition and whether it should be accounted for as a separate CGU after integration of manufacturing units. How to account for intangible assets with an indefinite life and whether the Locust and Clara perfume brands can be regarded as having an indefinite life. ठीक है. How to account for the proposed closure of 6 stores and the suggested closure of the remaining stores. Whether the primary store should be tested for impairment at 31st of December 2007 and whether the internet sales can be attributed to this store. Corbel Company trades in the perfume sector. It has recently acquired a company for its brand Gengi, purchased 2 additional brand names, and has announced plans to close its Italian stores. Wow. Corbel Company also opened a new store on a prime site in Paris. Why am I not working with Corbel Company? I don't know. The current financial year end is 31st of December 2007. On 1st of Jan, Corbel Company acquired 100% of Gengi Company. Both companies operate in the perfume sector. Corbel intends to merge the manufacture of Gengi Company's products into its own facilities and close Gengi Company's current manufacturing unit. And therefore, Corbel Company will continue to sell products under the Gengi brand name after its registration has been transferred and its manufacturing units have been integrated. The directors of Corbel believe that most of the value of Gengi company was derived from the brand and there is no indication of the impairment of the brand at 31st of December 2007. The question is whether the Gengi company brand name will be accounted for separately from goodwill on acquisition. ठीक है. What do you think?
So yes, so there will be a goodwill on acquisition, right? Because we are acquiring a brand name which already has its presence in the market.
This is not the answer that I'm looking for. Tell me something, Gengi company, will it account for this goodwill as a separate intangible asset in its own standalone financial statements? Will it do that?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Why
In
not?
separate not.
Internally generated.
Internally generated.
Internally
Internally
generated.
generated brand. ठीक है, fair enough. This is this is basically given to you and this is understandable here for its own self, for its standalone financial statements, it must recognize, it will not be able to recognize this particular item. But on acquisition, what do you think should happen? At the time of acquisition, do you think this is an identifiable asset for Corbel company?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And what is the expectation? The expectation is that all identifiable identifiable assets and liabilities of the subsidiary should be accounted for in the consolidated financial statements. Correct. Now, why do you think this is identifiable? Can it be bought or sold separately? An item is an intangible asset or anything is identifiable if it can be bought or sold separately or it arises from contractual or legal rights. I think kal ya parso we did a question where there was it arose from contractual or legal rights. Correct. यहाँ पे Jengi brand is intangible. ठीक है. It generates future economic benefits, no doubt. So it is an intangible asset. And at the same time, do you believe that it can be bought or sold separately? Because see, we are also acquiring the Jengi brand here, right? We are acquiring the brand and we are paying a certain amount for that. So in consolidated financial statements, it must be accounted for because it is an identifiable asset of the subsidiary company and all identifiable assets and liabilities of the subsidiary company must be accounted for at fair value in the consolidated financial statements. ठीक है. So Jengi company brand should be accounted for, and it should be accounted for separately as compared to goodwill on acquisition. Goodwill on acquisition के साथ क्लब नहीं करना है, separately उसको दिखाना है. Do you agree?
Yes, sir.
Have a quick look at the summary points for this answer. You have to develop it properly बाद में, but I'm just giving you summary points.
Sir, in the
Hmm.
question, they have not mentioned consolidated financial statements, no? They have just mentioned standalone, probably.
But Corbel
They
company is
mentioned that
acquiring
one.
the other company ना. सो किसके अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स में, मतलब किसके बुक्स में हो रहा है? कोरबेल कंपनीज फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट के बुक्स में हो रहा है.
Ah,
सो
no, no, I'm not
नॉट
discussing about that, sir.
consolidated. Even if it is not consolidated financial statements, Corbel company will treat that Jengi brand as an identifiable intangible asset, right?
That is correct, sir. हाँ, वहाँ पे क्वेश्चन नहीं है. I'm just saying कि it is not
Regardless.
consolidated.
Yeah.
I'm-
It is not specifically consolidated, and it pretty much, even if it were consolidated, you would consider. Even if it is not consolidated, you will still consider, right? Standalone of Corbel company, which has acquired 100% of Jengi company, it will treat that intangible as a separate asset, and it will be shown separately, not mixed up with goodwill. Okay. Now, uh, and whether it should be accounted for as a separate CGU. Now tell me, what is a cash generating unit? What is
So
it?
group
The
of
group of assets which can't be
Smallest group of assets generating economic benefits.
A group of assets which basically they have to work together in order to generate economic benefits for the entity, right? So it is the smallest group of assets. They are not dependent on others for generating independent cash flows. Now, brands by themselves, they cannot form a separate CGU because they do not generate independent cash flows. They will have to see, it is the name of the company as a whole, and that brand name is generating future economic benefits. But sirf brand name without having production facilities, without having other assets, sirf brand name cannot generate independent cash flows. Do you agree? So brand mostly cannot be classified as a CGU, and see, it is a corporate asset and it will have to be allocated to all the CGUs. Right? हमने impairment में ऐसे questions भी किए थे where the asset is allocated to all the CGUs. So it will basically fall under that category. ठीक है? इसको देखो.
सर ऊपर वाला भी नहीं देखा था थोड़ा सा.
ठीक है?
Sir, I didn't understand this corporate assets.
What goodwill is a corporate asset ना. इसके पहले in impairment questions, haven't we allocated goodwill to the different CGUs? It is, what is a corporate asset? Goodwill is not for one particular CGU ना, वो तो पूरे company का goodwill होता है. So it is not CGU level asset. It is goodwill of the company which is allocated amongst the different CGUs.
Correct, sir.
ठीक है? Okay. Let's look at the second part of the question. How to account for intangible assets with an indefinite life, and whether the locust and Clara perfume brands can be regarded as having an indefinite life. Intangible assets with an indefinite life. What do we do?
No
We
amortization
test
impairment review.
impairment.
No
Is not
amortization tests for
amortized,
impairment regularly at fixed
but
period.
annual impairment test is
And
conducted.
Very good. No amortization, regular periods नहीं, impairment review at every reporting date.
Every reporting day. Yeah.
ठीक है. And can Locust and Clara perfume brands be regarded as having an indefinite life? In addition to now owning the Jengi brand, Corbel has acquired two other perfume brand names to prevent rival companies acquiring them. The first perfume, Locust, has been sold successfully for many years and has an established market. The second is a new perfume which has been named after a famous actor who intends to promote the product. The directors of Corbel company believe that two perfume brand names have an indefinite life. What do you say? What do you think?
But I think first one can be of have infinite life. But I don't think the second one have, because it's a
I
new.
Okay.
Because it's already first one is already established and it's already like famous in the market, and second one is not. It's all new. So I don't think.
And the brand will remain popular, I mean, probably till this actor is popular, right? ये एक्टर का पॉपुलैरिटी खत्म तो ब्रांड ऑल्सो खत्म. करण, तूने ये आंसर पहले देखा था?
नहीं सर, देखा नहीं था, मैं तो जस्ट
अभी सोचा?
क्योंकि बेसिस.
वेरी
हाँ.
गुड यार, आई एम क्वाइट इम्प्रेस्ड. So the first perfume has already been in the market for a long duration, and it has been quite popular with people. So that makes, I mean, because of that, it can be expected to have an indefinite useful life. We are not saying infinite useful life, we are saying indefinite useful life. Okay, it can be expected to have because it has a long track record of market success. The brand appears to be resistant to, matlab, seasons must have come and gone, and yet it has retained its popularity. So that may have an indefinite life. But ये जो Clara है, this is a new introduction in the market. You are not really assured of long term economic benefits coming to you. Plus, it depends on the popularity of the actor. At the moment the actor is not popular, जैसे कंगना रनौत के नाम से brand बना दिया. The moment she is not popular, which has already happened, I guess, then the brand also fades away, right? So, which is why the first could have an indefinite life. The second is less likely to have an indefinite life. Here, don't say will and won't, just say more likely, less likely. ठीक है? इसको देखिए. मुझे कल किसी ने पूछा, हाँ, डबल ए में, कि इतना सा लिखेंगे तो चलेगा क्या? नेचुरली नहीं चलेगा. दीज आर पॉइंट्स. इससे सेंटेंस बनाना आपको आता है ना? हाँ, बिकॉज उतना तो, थैंक गुडनेस. ठीक है. अब whether the primary store would be tested for impairment at 31st of December, and whether the internet sales can be attributed to this store. Nee, and how to account for the proposed closure of 6 stores and the suggested closure of remaining stores. ठीक है. Corbel company approved and announced a plan to close and sell all 6 Italian stores on 31st of December. The 6 stores will close after a liquidation sale, which will last for 3 months. Management has committed to a formal plan for the closure of 6 stores and has also started an active search for a single buyer for their assets. The stores are being closed because of the increased demand generated by Corbel company's internet sales. Very good. A local newspaper has suggested an article that up to 30 stores may be closed with a loss of 500 jobs across the world. Earn up type hoga koi over the next 5 years. The directors of Corbel have denied that this is the case. What do you think? How should you account for the
IFRS 5
IFRS 5.
IFRS 5
5.
plus
guide
redundancy
for
provision should be recorded
Yeah.
because there's a constructive obligation as the management has a commit formal plan in place and has announced it to the employees and other people.
Very good. Quite impressed. One is existing. So I thought so many of you will jump at IAS 37 and only talk about IAS 37. It's good to know that you haven't. गुड, मतलब अभी मुझे थोड़ा थोड़ा कॉन्फिडेंस आ रहा है आप लोगों पे कि आप पेपर में जाके लोचा मार के नहीं आओगे. ठीक है. You will have to first of all mention कि why are you calling it as a non-current asset held for sale or a disposal group. यहाँ पे disposal group होगा, right? The moment you decide to classify that as a disposal group, then what will you do with it? Measure at lower of carrying amount or fair value less cost to sell.
Cost to sell.
Okay. Once a formal closure has been announced and you are actively searching for a buyer, तो क्या होगा? You will have to create a redundancy provision as per IAS 37 reconstruction. This is redundancy होगा यहाँ पे. Reconstruction, avoid the word reconstruction, although if you use it, it's not a problem. Why am I saying redundancy? Because the store technically is not it's not reorganizing. It's basically closing something, है ना? So when you talk about that, make sure that you specifically use the word redundancy, because यहाँ पे focus redundancy पे है. Redundancy मतलब there are people whose jobs will become outdated, they will no longer be required by the company, and now because the company has made a public this thing, है ना, कंपनी ने पब्लिक अनाउंसमेंट कर दिया है. सो एज रोशन करेक्टली पॉइंटेड आउट, it has to be, there has to be a constructive obligation now, and because there is a constructive obligation, naturally you will have to close down your store. ठीक है, मतलब close down your store नहीं, you will have to create a provision.
Create a provision. Yeah.
That is the more important part. Now, the moment there is a formal closure plan and you are trying to search for an active buyer, that means sale is highly probable. You will have to show them as a discontinued operation. Correct. Once it gets, you will have to show them as a discontinued operation. And you will have to create a provision for redundancy as per IAS 37. That is one thing that you should keep in mind. Now, there are these suggested, एक कोई journalist ने, he has made it in a newspaper article कि 30 stores are closed. But you as the financial reporting person who is in charge of financial reporting, for you a provision should be created only when there is a constructive obligation. This is a newspaper clipping, so it's not enough to create a provision because it's not a formal announcement. Also, the company has not announced a plan for sale, right? Because that sale closure is not highly probable, it cannot be classified as a held for sale and not even as a discontinued operation. It must be recognized and depreciated normally. ठीक है. तो इतना ही आपको लिखना है. दैट न्यूज़पेपर वाला पार्ट मत भूलना. हाँ, न्यूज़पेपर वाला पार्ट ऑल्सो यू शुड हाईलाइट. ओके. अगेन a question that it's not very difficult, but आपको थोड़ा सा यहाँ पे you will have to stay a little alert here. Why? Because there is a possibility कि you will only get carried away with IAS 37 and not talk about IFRS 5. Calling it a disposal group discontinued operation is important. पढ़ो इसको. ठीक है? Okay. Last part. Whether the primary store should be tested for impairment at 31st of December and whether internet sales can be attributed to this store. Corbel's primary store is located in central Paris. Wow. It has only recently been opened at a significant cost, with the result that management believes it will make a loss in the current financial year to 31st of December. This loss making is not of concern as the performance is consistent with expectations for such a new and expensive store, and management believes that the new store will have a positive effect on Corbel's brand image. If impairment testing of primary store were to be required, then Corbel company would include the cash flows from all internet sales in this assessment. The goods sold via internet are sourced from either Corbel company's central distribution center or individual stores. Internet sales are either delivered to customers' home or are collected by the customer from the store supplying the goods. So internet sales, the way I look at it now, these people are deliberately, forcefully trying to include the sale of, matlab, वो जो internet sale है, they are trying to include it here in order to create a positive value in use. But somehow I believe that internet sales cannot be attributed to this store. What do you think?
Yes, sir. It should be
Yes.
related to the asset itself and not other thing. The cash flow
Are they
means.
even passing through this particular store?
No,
It should be treated as a separate line of business or
separately.
a separate major line of
Right.
business.
Only those cash flows which are generated directly by the primary store should be included, right? Cash flows, had it been ki yaar they are getting sourced through the store or they are actually passing through the store, so I could have made some excuse for this behavior. But this very clearly seems, like a very feeble attempt to somehow prevent the store from getting impaired. Matlab, that is how I would look at it. यार ये store का impairment रोकने का, it's a very feeble way of doing it. It's not really मतलब it doesn't really tie up with that, right? And tell me, the primary store, the idea is that the performance is primarily going down now. So do you be, I believe that यार impairment testing तो होना चाहिए. There is an indicator of impairment present, है ना? When you are looking, and that store can be considered as a CGU in its own way. So I believe that just saying कि this particular store is not generating revenue, but we will attribute the internet sales here, and thereby we will stop it from getting impaired that way, or we can avoid the impairment testing, I think is a very sad attempt to make sure that the store still is value. The primary store provides brand benefit to all the stores. Usko, it could be considered as a corporate asset also because वो central store है, right? Now, I don't know of, I mean, so many Italian fashion houses that you have. I think, again, I'm not sure where all of them are headquartered, but if they are headquartered in Italy, or if say, for example, you are talking about Chanel, so to say. Now, when I'm talking about a brand like Chanel, it gets its value from where? From the fact that it is a brand that has generated in Paris, right? If it is a brand that has generated in Paris, वो सबको value दे रहा है. So it can be considered as a corporate store also, मतलब central asset also, or it can be considered as an independent CGU, both ways. But it has to be tested for impairment.
I have a doubt in this.
Yes.
The because the store is having loss in the current year, are we treating this as that as an indicator for impairment?
I beg your pardon.
So impairment is to be tested annually only for intangible assets and goodwill on acquisition of a subsidiary. So other than that, impairment should be tested only if there are indicators, right?
Okay.
So are we just treating the loss in the current year to be an indicator of impairment for this?
Maybe in a certain sense.
I thought it won't be. This is not an indicator of impairment.
The
I'm not
fact that
sure on
you're
this.
losing sales, right?
Sorry?
The fact that you are losing sales. that is very much an indicator of impairment, na, because your future economic benefits are going down.
Well, we are not
But
Sir,
they've
losing
also
initially,
right now
mentioned
no?
the
that it is
sales term,
recently open. It is recently open, so I wouldn't deem it in a way. I wouldn't
It's in
put
a
it in a way of
developing
losing
thing.
sales.
Like, how can we make out at this point that it won't make profits in future?
Yeah, even in the first lane, they have stored like Corbel company also has opened a new store on a prime site in Paris. So it is just opened and
Yeah, like it hasn't even created an active market for itself.
yeah, I may be completely wrong. I'm just asking you this.
See, here, though, even if it is recently opened, the point that you are mentioning, that it has made loss in the financial year of 2007, and the loss making is not of concern as the performance is consistent with the expectations for such a new and expensive store, and management believes that the new store will have a positive effect. If impairment testing were to be required, Corbel would include the cash flows from all internet sales. See, although the store is recently opened at a significant cost, and also, I agree with the fact that, there has been a loss and the loss making is not of concern because, you have better chances of, recovery, and नए store के साथ, initial years में the cost is high. No doubt about that. But uh, the goods sold via the internet, somewhere aren't they taking up a lot of the main business away? So what's to say that the sales will remain consistent in the future?
So
I agree with your point.
है ना? So right, it's not, see, although just today in some other class I had a similar discussion. Here दूसरे question, मतलब some part of the question they have mentioned a data point. That doesn't mean कि it doesn't apply here. In the sense, if you are talking about the fact that online sales have kind of broken it for you, it's not that they have broken it up in B3, but in B4 they are not creating a problem, right? Online sales taking away offline sales is a problem that has plagued other locations. So why should the Paris location be any different just because it is a newly opened fancy new store,
But
right?
the sales expectation have met, right? Like they have expected
Sales
something and
expectations.
their expectation is met. Maybe they have expected loss in this current year, but that is not clearly mentioned anywhere.
Right. So that
And
is
I
one
think
part, no doubt. But अच्छा freeze नहीं हुआ ना? हाँ, okay. See, that is a part, but while those expectations have been met, we also cannot turn a blind eye to the fact that overall online sales are trumping offline sales, right? So even if this year the expectations have been met, there is a high possibility because of other data given in the question that future sales will go down, or they might not be able to keep pace with what the expectation is. Because when you open a new store, you will only make progressive this thing, right? Because if
Yes,
progressive
yes.
discussions ही होंगे, तो on the basis of other data given in the question, it clearly seems that online sales are going to take over everything. Which is why we are saying that had the other data not been there, then your point would have been valid. ठीक है, and even if you want to make your point in the paper na, in this particular answer, it's not necessary that only this way of explaining is right. If you are if you are looking at, if you have a certain argument, you can put that across. And they are not like Indian evaluators कि यार मॉडल आंसर में जो है वो नहीं हुआ तो हम मना कर देंगे आपको इवेल्युएट करने से. दैट इज नॉट व्हाट दे वुड से. So it's not such a, मतलब आपका point भी valid है if you can prove it. But ideally the correct answer is that because other departments, sorry, and see, they are evaluating impairment store by store. Now that also they have mentioned. So each store in a way is getting treated as a separate CGU. But what happens in one store in terms of the sales getting affected because of the development of online, that is going to affect the other store also. Right. So that's
Ideally, there is
not.
a trend change. So when trend change is happening, so it is impacting everything, not just the stores. So that impairment have to happen, kind of a situation.
अच्छा, if we were to go ahead with your point, ठीक है, अगर I want to explain the answer using your point, can I make it convincing and get full marks? I can. What points will I use in this place? I will say that when is when do you say that something is impaired? When it is performing worse than what it was expected, right? Now I'm playing the devil's advocate. I'm presenting the answer from the other perspective. If if the performance is worse than expected, then I will test for impairment. Here the
Yes, sir.
performance is at par. So it is not worse than expected. Worse than expected होगा तो future trend नीचे जाएगा, right? So can I present my answer that way? Yes, I can. So both answers are equally valid. Like I told you at the beginning, both will fetch marks. It's just that how you convince the examiner. Is your argument compelling enough? Now, this is where SBR becomes different from a typical CA ka financial reporting ka paper. There, the focus will be on calculations and application of rules in the accounting standard. कि अरे good, you remember there is this part where goodwill cannot be allocated between CGUs. In that case, क्या करना है? Another financial reporting exam like CA will focus on hardcore rules. Your paper, fortunately for you, focuses on this aspect in which you can explain it in both ways. So it is giving you that room for bringing in your own interpretation of the situation. Okay, so use it to your advantage.
Thank
ठीक है?
you.
Most welcome.